The Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Blockchain Super Conference is coming to Dallas, Texas, February 16, 17, and 18 in 2018. If you know of a better way to get the latest insider knowledge about crypto, to hear directly from the top minds in this field, to interact personally with 800 fellow crypto lovers, hodlers, investors, miners, traders, developers, and founders, then I'd like to hear about it. If you don't, then you don't want to miss out. Register today for the Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Blockchain Super Conference. Go to bitcoinsuperconference.com and register today as a super early bird to get the lowest rates on tickets and hotel rooms. That's bitcoinsuperconference.com.
Welcome to Almost Here, Round the Corner Future Technology Podcasts with Richard Jacobs. Future technologies poised to transform our lives for better or worse are the focus of this podcast. Almost Here means these technologies are now here and starting to be used, or just around the corner, from Bitcoin to artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.
Hello, this is Richard Jacobs with Future Tech Podcast. My guest today is Dr. Yu Zhu, the CEO and founder of TigerGraph. Dr. Zhu, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's really nice to talk to you.
Yeah, please let me know. Let listeners know, what is TigerGraph and what do you guys do there?
Okay, TigerGraph, we launched the TigerGraph in September last year, 2017. We provide high-performance, real-time graph platform. Real-time
graphing of what?
Yeah, so it's complete high-performance, real-time graph database system.
Oh, what kind of data would you provide graphs of? What's an example?
Yeah, there's many examples. You can think about like a product graph. So you can put in your product data, right? The price, the color, the manufacturer for each product. You can have a social graph. So you could put your customer user information, the behavior data in a bigger graph. If you think about the supply chain graph, you can have a product, you can have parts, you can have a supply, you can have the other information about the production, right? So basically, you can put any type of data in a graph database, from like log data to CSV files, from database, table. You can store any information in a graph.
So what does it look like right now for most businesses? Are they doing just snapshot in time graphs, or what are they doing?
I think currently, even the business are using graph database in different ways. So you actually mentioned both ways, right? So the first way is that a lot of customers, especially customer for TigerGraph, to use our system in a real-time fashion, which means that they stream the real-time data to the graph database system. Immediately, they query and they get back the result. But there are also customers, they use graph database as offline tool to compute the large-scale analytics, so they can generate a really complex result. So that does not have to be in real time.
So what are some of the benefits of having these real-time graphs? What have companies told you that? How has it helped them?
For example, if you think about the financial fraud, right? So you want to catch the fraud as soon as possible to prevent, right, the fraud. If you think about Uber, if there are some criminals and the criminal groups, they want to get some incentive, right? They use some bad credit card, they stole some information. So you want to catch the fraud in real time. So when that event happens, you want to make sure you can catch the fraud, right? You can also think about like Alibaba/Alipay, this type of real-time money transfer company. When some people send the money to another account, you want to make sure they're real, right? That they're not fraudulent. So you do want to do your application and analytics in real time.
So what kind of industries use the graphs and the graphing software you have? What are some examples?
Graph technology is a fundamental horizontal technology. So it can be used for many industries. Right now, particularly, we see a lot of data points in financial, banking, and also in e-commerce and the supply chain industries.
Do companies want to save the graph data, even though it's coming out in real time? I figure it would create a lot of data, but do they save it and they can replay what happens, to a graph over time to see what went wrong?
What you mentioned is really one advanced feature of a graph database. We at the TigerGraph, we do have this feature we call the snapshot to do exactly what you just asked about. So you can ask a simple query, for example, to say, how does my social network look like last year, right? You can send a simple query, but apply the query on the current data set, right? So then you can see, okay, how your social network evolved and changed over the last year. Yeah, and it's very useful to many different applications.
So how did you get into this? Why do you have a passion for graphs? What's the background?
My background is really in database and the distributed system. I have a PhD in database from the University of California, San Diego. I worked for Teradata and Twitter. So I have been always working on big data, distributed system infrastructure. At Teradata, Teradata is really high performance, parallel database system, right? So it has solved a lot for big data problems for its biggest customer. But there are a lot of real-world problems. They're actually real graph problems, and they really need require many joins and relationship discovery and exploration. So for those type of problems, even as powerful as Teradata, it cannot deliver the performance required. So I saw queries that literally took days or weeks to finish. So I'm a database guy person, so I knew relational table model is not good for this type of problems. Later, I joined Twitter. I worked on the distributed data infrastructure. At that time, that's like 6 years ago, Twitter was growing really quickly. Social graph analytics was really important to grow the business, but there was not really good graph solution in the market. So Twitter developed its own solution. It's in-house. It's in memory, but it works on only one machine. And so I saw a huge opportunity in a graph database. So that's basically my motivation. We started a TigerGraph.
Very interesting. What's the future of graphing technology? What do you want to do that you can't do yet? What's the latest and greatest?
That's a great question. I think graph theory is not new. Has been like more than hundreds of years old. But really, we started to have industry graph database about only 15 years ago. So we start in the industry. We start with the first generation graph database, but it's only single version based, cannot scale up, can only scale up, cannot scale out, right? So, but the graph is really good to model complex problems. Graph is really good to do complex computation. But the problem right now, we are all talking about the big data, right? So if you just have one machine to do graph computation, you're not going to be able to scale out, right? So the future for graph database is really to scale out, so you can handle a large amount of data, but also do the computation really quickly, still in real time. So in real time, we typically are talking about the human real time, 1 second or below. So I think the future of graph database is to handle bigger data in a distributed system, and also still be able to change the data, change the graph, so the graph should be mutable. And also, we have a white paper to talk about deep link analytics. Deep link analytics means that you want to really walk or traverse in the graph many steps or many hops. For example, if you want to find your friend of friend, that's 2 steps, hops. That can give a lot of information. But in a lot of applications, like in financial fraud, you maybe need to walk from one IP, go from one account, and 10 steps deep in your graph to find the connected entities, relationships. So that's what we call the deep link. So I think the future of the graph analytics is that you need to do bigger data, real-time update, but most importantly, you need to be able to connect the dots in a bigger graph. And in order to do all of those things, it's really, really challenging.
Do you find that companies even know what they should be looking at in terms of their data, or do you have to consult with them and tell them, what results do you want, and all right, here's what you want to look at? Like, I would have to consult with them first, right? They don't even know what they're doing.
Yeah. So we do see two types of customers. Some customers are really advanced. They know what they want to do. They know their use cases. They are already convinced that graph modeling and the graph computation is the right way to do. They just don't have the right tools and the database system in the market. Right? So, but also there are some customers, like you mentioned, they're a little bit late in terms of new technology. But after we talk to them, do a little bit of education discussion, it's like light a bulb, lights on, so they got it, right? So, but there's also is a history of technology evolution. I think about 2 or 3 years ago, there are not so many people who are really familiar with graph database, but recently, a lot more people are really more comfortable and familiar with the graph database. Especially last month, Amazon announced their own limited preview version of a graph database or service in the cloud. So right now, the graph database is really hot. So I think, and there are some research reports that 80% of bigger companies are going to use graph database. So I think more and more people are familiar with the graph technology now.
Okay, very good. What about artificial intelligence? Are you trying to incorporate that in making the graphs, or does a human first have to still make all the interpretations, set up the equations, the graphs, and correspond with the database and run things?
So I mentioned the graph is great to do pattern matching, to find relationships, to predict relationships, to do a lot of really fancy analytics, which you cannot easily do by just looking at the tables, row by row, right? At TigerGraph, we are doing this in a staged approach. We first build the best graph database system. On top of that, we provide the really easy to use SDK or query language, very similar to SQL. So our customer can use this to do all kinds of applications, all kinds of analytics. So some customers actually did some machine learning type application on top of our system. So one quick example is about the real-time telephone call scamming detection system. So if I make a phone call to you, our system immediately in real time needed to know if this is a normal phone call, or is it for promotion, or is it for harassment, or is it for really scamming, right? So this, the customer use our graph database to connect all phone numbers, the calling history. So they have a huge graph. They know exactly in 2 steps, 3 steps, the relationship between any 2 phone numbers. And based on graph structure, they also compute hundreds of features for each phone number. And then they throw 2 other machine learning AI modules to compute some features for each phone number, and then they update the graph. So for TigerGraph, the next step, we're going to introduce more machine learning and the AI module inside of the graph database. But right now, we don't have a lot of like built-in functionality for machine learning and AI out of the box, but that's something we are working this year.
Very good. And how can interested people get in touch with TigerGraph and you to get a system set up and evaluated for their business?
We have a system running on Amazon. We have a sandbox. We have test drives running on Amazon. We also have a managed graph database or service also running on Amazon. So it's really easy for customers to go to our website. They can also, we have videos, demos online on huge amount of graph data. For example, I think we have a demo, real live demo on more than a few billion edge and the relationship and the entity graph. So the customer, without doing anything, can go to our website, just look at the graph. We have built-in queries. They can click the query, type in the different parameters, and see how we finish complex queries and return result in under 1 second. And we also have a complete web browser-based Visual SDK. So the customer just can go to the website, just using a few clicks, drag and drop, they can create a graph, explore the graph, and query the graph all through the web interface.
Okay, well, very good, Dr. Zhu. I appreciate you being on the phone, and thank you for letting us know about this.
Yeah, it's really nice talking to you. Thank you.
The Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Blockchain Super Conference is coming to Dallas, Texas, February 16, 17, and 18 in 2018. If you know of a better way to get the latest insider knowledge about crypto, to hear directly from the top minds in this field, to interact personally with 800 fellow crypto lovers, hodlers, investors, miners, traders, developers, and founders, then I'd like to hear about it. If you don't, then you don't want to miss out. Register today for the Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Blockchain Super Conference. Go to bitcoinsuperconference.com and register today as a super early bird to get the lowest rates on tickets and hotel rooms. That's bitcoinsuperconference.com.
You have been listening to Almost Here, Around the Corner Future Technology podcast with Richard Jacobs. Subscribe to this podcast, post a review to discover more future technologies that are poised to transform our lives for better or worse, such as Bitcoin, artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.